Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. I have a very important update to share with you guys, breaking down one of my favorite ecosystems going forward into this next cycle. I've been talking a lot about different projects and ecosystems I think are undervalued and ones that are going to be providing a lot of upside potential for early investors. Today is a perfect opportunity to talk about what we're seeing inside of the price because I do firmly believe we're about to be seeing a breakout very soon. And this is definitely one of those projects that's severely undervalued in the short term that I think could be providing some of the bigger gains moving forward from here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, now right off the bat, I want to talk a little bit about Bitcoin, touch up on a little bit of that prior analysis before we jump into some of these tokens we're going to talk about today. Now right off the bat guys, we have sold off from the range highs, but we've kind of been holding support right around this sort of mid-range consolidation. We haven't made any sort of big move one way or another. We're mainly just kind of consolidating right at that mid-range. Currently in the short term, price did break out of a short-term descending resistance, and we're kind of consolidating there at the breakout at the same point of our mid-range that we've been watching. So I think we're at a very important pivot point, and I don't find it coincidental that the breakout of this short-term descending resistance is happening right at our exact point of the mid-range. I find it more likely that this happens to be a shifting point. If we hold this breakout, I think that we do end up coming back up, retest another move to the range highs. Whether we break out of that or not, I think we're bullish, so I do think that we're going to end up breaking out of here at some point, but we have to kind of wait and see, guys. There's a couple ways I'm looking at this entire consolidation, and it could point to a couple scenarios that we may see inside of the market. Now, scenario one is we're just kind of ranging here sideways before we get a big breakout one way or another. But what I've kind of been watching for if we turn bearish was the potential where this entire move ends up being some type of ABC correction where we make one more final low to sweep this range. That was kind of the bearish scenario that I was watching. All we're doing right now in the short term is making a four-wave correction, and I think that we've got one more move coming before this rally is over. As we have the ETF coming up, I kind of think that it's going to end up being more of a sell the news type of event, and we're coming up very close to that. I believe it's like 10 days away that we're going to have the ultimate announcement. Coinbase is already prepared. They made some announcements over the last couple days talking about how they're preparing for that in ETF approval. So I do think that this is going to end up being something like this, where regardless of the consolidation, we believe that we're going to be going up for a new high. But when we do see that new high, I think that we're going to be doing something along the lines of this. I think we're actually going to be clearing above 48,500 because guys, ever since we broke above here at 25K, I've told you guys that my target was 48,500, and now we're finally at the point of hitting that target, and I won't be the least bit surprised with all of this extra sort of volatility in the market. We see the price make this peak just above that, swipe these range out a little bit, just clear all of those people that are going to be trying to short that level, only for the price to immediately start to come back down for another correction. This is overall what I'm watching for, and I'm not going to be surprised if we come back down and retest this main trend line that we've been consolidating up to this point. Really, the main area of support I see for this next part of the cycle is support on top of this prior range that we were holding below, basically being like $31,000 or $32,000. I think that we're going to be coming back down, holding support above that range high. But as that lines up with our horizontal support, we're also going to be lining up with our ascending support pretty much at the same level. So that's kind of what I'm watching for. If we do see a move all the way up to like $52,000, which would be right here, if we see a move like that and we come back down to this trend line, you're looking at like a 35% drop approximately, which historically speaking, if we're looking at, maybe like 2016 and 2017, that was a lot more of what we saw. We saw a lot of steady consolidation as we built an ascending support, and every pullback we saw was about that, 35%. This one was 40. We got to keep in mind that Bitcoin's not, at this time it was fairly small market cap, whereas today it's a little bit higher. But every one of these drops was pretty much inside of that range. That's kind of what I'm expecting moving forward from here. We've had such a nice breakout. We called this entire move since it started, but I do believe that we are getting ready for a correction. And this ETF news is only going to be a sell the news type of event. But guys, let's talk about the ecosystem. I think we've rambled enough about Bitcoin. Let's talk about the altcoins I think could be taking off in a big way, breaking down what the charts are showing us and why I think that these could provide some of the bigger gains moving forward from here. Alrighty guys, I'm sorry I'm going to have to blind you for a second, but this is the best chart that I can find of the Ethereum hex. So we have two different versions of hex. we have the E hex and we have the P hex. This is the pulse chain version of hex right over here. We talked a little bit about this one in my last update, talking about the two, and we talked about how this was basically the duplicated version over on pulse chain, because when pulse chain went live, everybody that was holding ERC20s got a duplicated version. So anything that you were holding ERC20 buys, you could actually convert back into pulse. So I think that's a great opportunity for anybody that was actually holding at the time of the snapshot, which probably a lot of you guys are. All you have to do is add the network and check your wallets, and you're going to be able to find a decent amount of tokens sitting in there. So with that being said, guys, they duplicated hex too, because there's people that were holding the original version of hex on Ethereum. So when they launched pulse chain, it actually duplicated hex as well. And that's why we ended up seeing that massive drop shortly after the airdrop. Basically what happened was hex got diluted. Now, I still think that hex is going to end up performing well even with hex on the pulse chain network, because we have E hex, which is Ethereum hex. That was this one right here that's always been around. It was the original. And now we have P hex, which is the pulse chain version. This was the duplicated version that is now trading on pulse chain. So we have these two versions, and there's a lot of talk inside of the community about which one's going to outperform, which one's the better investment. Should I be trying to make more long-term stakes inside of P hex, or is there more belief still in the original one being E hex? And you have a lot of the original supporters. I've heard kind of mixed opinions. I've heard some people give opinions that P hex is going to hold more value long term. And for me, I like to just look what the charts say, because I can't really predict too many things like that fundamentally, but I can say that the charts are showing us a little bit of an early sign as to what could potentially play out. So when we're comparing the two, remember, this is the Ethereum hex, and this is the pulse chain hex. Comparing the price of these two, the E hex is sitting at 0.005, whereas the price of P hex is sitting at 0.009. So there is a little bit of a difference, but currently P hex is valued at a higher level. Now, I think that that is only short-term emotion. The reason why we saw such a big emotional reaction mainly was the dilution. That was the fundamental reason for why this dropped, but I think that a lot of it also was emotional based, especially once we started to get to this point here. This is where things got very overly emotional. For us to drop all the way to a new low, if we come out here and look onto a bigger time frame, we're going to be able to see a decent amount of exhaustion taking place inside of our momentum indicators. And this is the biggest sign that this is going to get bought up. So when we're looking, notice how we had these two lower lows. This is a lower low in price. And notice how our momentum indicator, being the OBV, it made a higher high right there. That shows bullish divergence. So anytime you have a lower low on the RSI, but a higher high on the momentum indicators, it shows a shift is taking place. It shows that even though the price is going down, the momentum is actually swinging in the opposite direction, and it's an early warning sign. It was, in fact, this exact setup is the reason I took my hex trade right here, and why we made 2.5x on the entire run up right here before the airdrop. That was just a short-term trade that I took inside of my group, but that was the reason we took the trade, was because of this bullish divergence that was forming. Now, guys, I don't know if you're looking at this and noticing the same thing, but we did make a lower low here in price again. We've successfully made 3 lower lows, but if you notice, what has the OBV done? What has the momentum indicators done? They successfully made 3 higher highs. In fact, we're currently consolidating right on top of the prior high as support. So I don't think you can really get much more bullish than that when we're looking at momentum. And that's why I personally believe that the highest ROI potential given this entire bull run will be found in the original hex. And I think the reason why is because it's more oversold in the short term right now than the P hex is. Notice how the P hex is actually worth more. And currently the P hex is consolidating below resistance. It already broke out of this long-term one right here, right? But we're currently consolidating still below this short-term descending resistance, and we've yet to make a breakout. The closer and the more times that we kind of hug against this, the weaker that gets. I think that we're nearing that point of breaking out pretty much like now. So keep that in mind. Like, it's not like it's lagging that much, but when we do compare the two, not only do we have a lot of momentum swinging in the bullish favor towards E hex, but on the shorter time frames as well, we can see that this is already broken from descending resistance. It broke descending resistance right there, and then it retested it as support. So that was where we saw the trend reversal take place in E hex, was right here. Now we're starting to see higher highs and higher lows. This is starting to build a new ascending support, and I do believe that we're about to start reversing very soon. We have just broken above this consolidation, currently retesting it as support. I think that this will ultimately lead towards continuation to the upside, and it'll end up looking something along the lines of this. There's a very obvious reversal pattern playing out, and that's what's called an inverse head and shoulder formation. I'm not really a big chart pattern guy, but if I see an obvious one, I'm going to point it out, and this is one of those examples. We have a very, very obvious inverse head and shoulder. The more horizontal horizontal that the neckline resistance is, the greater the likelihood of the pattern playing out. And the way that you would measure a target from this pattern, you could do it this way using Fibonacci. You basically go from the low all the way up to the top of the neckline, all the way back down to basically the low end of the shoulder. And then the 1618 basically gives you an exact target. And that's the way that you would measure a target based off the inverse head and shoulder. You're basically just looking for the height from the head all the way to the neckline and then the continuation from that point. So it's pretty much going to be taking us to 2 cents. And I think that that's where EHEX is headed in the short term. So you'd be looking at almost a 3x just to the top of that resistance. Now I wanted to share with you guys a chart that really blew my mind the first time I saw it because it was just called so perfectly. And I do want to give the guy credit because it really was just a great call. And I think it really fits along perfectly with what we're seeing. And I want to talk about how it factors into our reversal moving forward from here. Okay, so this is the call that I was talking about. So make sure you guys go follow Axis Live or Axis. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. But anyways, what we're looking at here, the most important thing is this fractal because he perfectly called what happened to Hex even before the bounce even took place. So remember, when we were looking at this, when we were looking at the chart of EHEX, I was talking about how right before this bounce, this is where I first made my signal about it, and we made like a 2x right here. He called this before this bounce would even take place. We were basically at the exact bottom of that. And this is where he made this chart. And basically the exact same thing happened. And what I find so interesting about this is how we're seeing the same sort of emotions taking place. We saw this massive capitulation. We came all the way back down to retest this wave 4 support. Historically speaking, that's a great area of support based off of Elliott wave theory. I know I'm not really trying to explain Elliott wave theory rules right now, but that's something I trade with. It's something I watch for. So we hit a very major support level long term. And now for us to start reversing, which is what we're seeing inside of the charts, we're seeing all of our momentum indicators basically on a weekly time frame, which the longer the time frame, the bigger the signal for it. So if we're seeing our momentum indicators flashing bullish after this massive capitulation, it's pretty much the same sort of thing that's going to be taking place that happened during COVID, where we saw this capitulation and then the price instantly came back to rebound. Do not be the least bit surprised to see this same sort of a setup take place, where price slowly inches back above. We get closer and closer towards that resistance, considering even if we just fill this inverse head and shoulder, we're going to be coming right back to here. So if we break out, we'll be to here. From there, we'll be able to truly set in the first higher high because we have to recapture this prior level as new support, right? That's the only way that we can confirm a higher high inside of the new bull trend. This was our prior support. We have to break above, hold support above that, confirm a new high, and then that sets in the reversal of the whole cycle. So I do believe that that's what's coming for us, big picture. It's just in the short term, we're kind of at that last stage, which is really why I wanted to talk about it. Like if anybody's going to be buying this long term, I think the time is now. Now, we talked a lot about EHEX, not so much about PHEX, and the main reason is I simply think that you're going to make more money right now by buying EHEX. So I think it's not a bad idea to hold both, and it's not a bad idea to have exposure to both, but for me, I still kind of see the original long-term value still in EHEX, even though you're going to get a lot more advantages by holding PHEX, which is the value of the whole ecosystem and what Richard Hart created. Like you have so many different outlets for profit. So anybody that was actually early to all of this, anybody that got duplicated hex over here on the Pulse Chain Network, like that to me is where the value was just simply being early to the thing. Now, if you're trying to just simply get in now and have exposure, for me, the value is in EHEX, and I still think that that's where the majority of the original OG holders are at, considering some of these guys still have 10, 15-year stakes, and they're not even close to being filled yet. So we still have a decent ways to go inside of this. So why would everybody just jump ship and assume that this is dead, whereas PHEX is the true, staple, which even though I still think that it could be the true staple, for me, with it having a more expensive price in the short term, with it still being below descending resistance, and with EHEX showing such massive exhaustion based off of the momentum indicators, I just can't see a scenario where PHEX outperforms it in the short term. So that's kind of why I'm basing my judgment and opinion around that thesis. So this is the video I had for you guys. I wanted to break some things down. I think that there's going to be a lot of profit in this ecosystem. I am going to be making a further update, maybe next week probably, talking about some of the other cryptos inside of this ecosystem. I mainly wanted to break down Hex and PHEX, talking a little bit about the two, the differences between the two, talking a little bit about what could be better long term. In the short term, I simply lean towards EHEX being the outperformer. I like the chart more, even though the chart of PHEX still looks exceptionally bullish. It's just leading in the short term, which any chart that's leading, if you have two of the same tokens or two tokens that generally will follow each other in the same ecosystem, which these are the same token at the end of the day, it doesn't get much more closely related than the two of EHEX and PHEX. So when we're talking about this, whichever one's breaking out first and whichever one's leading, that's probably going to be the one that does that the whole cycle. If we're starting to see that happening in the early portion, I won't be surprised to see that kind of play out the rest of the cycle. So that's my opinion. That's my thesis. If you guys found value, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you guys want to know more, simply see how I'm investing in my portfolio, which different altcoins we're accumulating inside of this ecosystem, you guys can sign up for my private group, linked in the description below. You're going to be able to sign up on my website, so make sure you guys look for that link to my website. It's just a one-time payment, lifetime access. As long as I'm investing, as long as I'm trading, even if it's outside of crypto, you guys are going to be able to see all of my picks. We're looking into a lot of different markets outside of crypto. Uranium is a big one, and I think that there's going to be plenty of opportunities even inside of bear markets moving forward from here. So if you guys ever want to see how I'm positioning, different altcoin picks we're looking at, many of them have been booming this year, and I think that that's only just getting started. So links are in the description to sign up on my website. Thank you guys so much for the support from the bottom of my heart. I love and appreciate each and every person that supports this channel. I know I have a lot of new supporters from the Hex community, and I see such a great thriving community over there, and I think it's going to be really encouraging once the price of these things start to really pick up again and we start to see a lot more new momentum into the market, because I think a lot of people are kind of feeling, you know, a little bit down in the dumps because of the way things have kind of transpired from the airdrop. But the amount of extra value that was truly added after that airdrop can't be underestimated. I think that in the short term, it's just an emotional overreaction. It will reverse, it will play back out, and things will go back to normal if you have patience. And I think that those that do will have a lot of profit to be looking forward for moving forward into 2024 and 2025. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.